owner of a property management company, GC Realty Development, which manages over 1,400 units around the Chicago market. I'm also co-host of Chicago's #1 real estate investment podcast, Straight Up Chicago Investor, which we are celebrating this month 5 years. I'll put a link to the celebration we're going to have 2 weeks from now on May 22nd in Elmhurst. We're going to have about 120, 130 people in one room to celebrate 5 years, and roughly, I think it was about 380 episodes we've been through. So we got the big 400 episode coming up here soon too. So my involvement in real estate has been for the last 20, I quit my W-2 job at 23 years old. I was doing a little bit before that. But I've leased over 5,000 units. We've managed over 6,000 units over the years, and we've completed over 60,000 work orders. And I always joke around and say none of those, or majority of those, were not between 9 and 5, and most of those were at night on the weekends, and always the least expected moments. So that's where I come from, and that's my background. I am a lifelong Chicagoan, born and raised in Addison, and I live out in St. Charles now. So in our office in Roselle. So. That just kind of setting the stage of who I am and what I speak about and what I do. Like to kind of share that in advance, anyone that's starting from the beginning that doesn't know me. But we have, I want to talk about pets today because this is something that's been coming up. We're getting into the peak of leasing season. And just for context, last year we leased just about 500 units. This year we're on our way to eclipse that as well too. So we're seeing what's happening in the market before people start talking about it. Before you're hearing stories about things sitting on the market and so forth. So this leasing season has been a little different. Some of the rent increases that we've seen in previous years are not as strong as they were in previous years. So if you rented your place out maybe in the last 24 months and you got a pretty good increase and you went after that increase again, you're probably not getting it this time. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, don't get me wrong, if you haven't had a turnover in 7-8 years and you really haven't adjusted up to rental rate, then you definitely have a great opportunity still to really kind of jump up there. I know even for myself, I have a couple long-term tenants that I'm getting like 1,200, 1,300, but I know if I turn that over, I get 1,500, 1,600. But a couple of these tenants are, it's a human-to-human business, and they're good people, and they got their families, and they're comfortable, and I know they're not free-flowing cash flow like some other people are fortunate to be. So I've been trying to take care of them and just kind of do what I can to keep them, knowing that it'll pay off here long term. They're covering my mortgage. I'm getting my tax write-offs. I'm not hurting for that extra cash flow, and hopefully maybe that's how I sleep better at night, or at least that's what I tell myself. So what really want to talk about around leasing today is pets. So when you go to put your place on the market, you have the option of saying, yes, I want pets. No, I don't want pets. You also have the option, yes, I'll have small pets only, or I'll only have dogs, or I'll only have cats. And I just want to kind of put it out there what I'm seeing within our portfolio and this year versus even the past. So if you've ever heard me talk before or heard me present or been on one of my other webinars, you've heard me say that 50% of all 50% of all tenants have a pet, some sort of pet. They might have a cat, they might have a dog. And then in addition to that 50%, another 18% is considering getting pet in the next 18 months. And that ends up being over 2/3 of the potential people that could be looking at your place, that when you go list your place on Zillow or have your realtor listed on the MLS, or you have a property manager like us listed where we go to all the different locations and we put no, that means everyone that's out there in the world, we're in Chicago, and right now there's probably 100,000 people looking for places to rent right now. When they go hit their search criteria, they're going to put the rent range, they're going to put the location, and they're going to put pets, Y or N, because they're going to match up their search with our search. So if you have no, that means 66% of the people that might have rented your place or might have looked at your place are not going to even look at it. So now you went down, now you're down to 33% of the entire market that's actually looking at your place because you selected no. Now don't get me wrong, you have some realtors, you have some renters that will call you up and say, hey, listen, I have great credit, I have a small dog, would you be willing to accept it? That's great. Those people are out there, and if you select no for pets, you might still get some of those people coming through. And you might be able to maybe negotiate something at that point. But just keep in mind, when the power of the internet, the power of the world we live in right now, is that when you put something online, people come to you. People come to your prearranged showings. They go through your prearranged pre-screening. All those people will never even get in their feet. Think about this: if you're a real estate investor out there, or if you've been a tenant before, if you're looking for something, you're getting that daily update. You're seeing everything that's new on the market. So your property, if you select no, will not end up in 66% of the people out there looking for a place's search on a daily basis. And it's important to come out the gate too, because if it's not new to the market and then you change it and you maybe put yes, Y to pets a couple weeks later, then still all those people that initially came out. We always in real estate, we always say that first 5 to 7 days are the most crucial. That's where people that have searches that are looking for new things to the market are going to see it first. So kind of keep that in mind. That is something that is yeah, right there in itself. So talking about allowing dogs, allowing cats, allowing small dogs, whatever it might be, I understand, after talking to, I mean, at this point, thousands of landlords, I totally understand why people stray away from it. It's just like, it ends up being, it's like, all right, being a landlord is already risky. So if I don't have pets, it's just one less thing I got to worry about. But it actually creates a whole bunch of other things you got to worry about, because it's, if you're not worrying about pets, but now you're worrying about having it taking weeks longer to rent your place out. And we'll talk about time frame here in a little bit. If you're not accepting pets, yes, you don't got the risk of potential pet damage, but now you have to worry about maybe that tenant moving out a year or two sooner than they would have, because now they have a significant other, now they have a kid, they promised them a dog, but now they can't have dogs here. So now you're opening yourself up to quicker turnovers. You're actually, by eliminating one risk, you're actually opening yourself up to some more. So, and there's some other advantages you could do to lower that risk and even increase your cash flow that we'll talk about here. So, the fears, a lot of times I get these stories around, I know this guy that's got a cousin that knows a landlord that rented to this place and the dog destroyed the place. I don't discredit that story being true. Now, destroying is a very, you could one person's level of destruction might be different than someone else's, but I will bet that at some point during the underwriting process of that applicant whose dog destroyed that place, there was red flags. The number one thing I've seen in underwriting applicants with dogs tied back to dog damage, and we have numbers on this as well too, is when somebody is a lower, call it caliber or less creditworthy applicant and they have pets, they are that dog, that cat is more likely to be less cared for, or you could chalk it up to maybe the applicant's gonna be less responsible for it. And yeah, you can put yourself in a situation. Trust me, I've seen tons of landlords take that 550 borrower that's out on their luck and between jobs, and they're just trying to do what they got to do, but then they have 2 German Shepherds, or they have 2 dogs, and they have a cat and 2 dogs. And they're trying to get approved, and then they're also bringing all this these pets with as well too. And those people could barely keep their lives together at that point. And nothing towards them. We all go through different things, phases in lives. But when that person that's trying to figure out their life comes into play, the last thing they're worried about is some of their dog things, or they might be a little more loose on what their dog's doing or not doing. They might be struggling where they don't even have time to pick up all that poop in the yard. So keep that in mind. The level of risk you're taking on when you bring on a pet really correlates with the quality of tenant that you're approving. So that is something, and there's a strong correlation that we have with that. We all run credit, we do background checks, we do all those things because we're trying to figure out something about the people applying for our places. We're trying to figure out, are they responsible? Historically, they were responsible by paying their bills. Historically, they've been responsible by getting good references from their landlord. And all those things are supposed to be predictors of the future. So now that they did all these great things in the past, now that they're now in the future, they're supposed to be taking care of your place the same way, or we're going to expect the same result. So if you look at it that way, and maybe you're trying to help a tenant or work with somebody that has less than perfect credit, or has call it just life baggage, you're losing that predictability in the future of how they're going to act, because the past isn't even giving you that clear track record. So taking care of a pet, taking care of a kid, it's a lot of responsibility, and there's a how you raise your kids or how you raise your pets ends up being how they end up turning out later. So keep that in mind. Now, the cool thing that we have nowadays is you have pet screening. So for us, we use a tool for pet screening, and the dog or cat gets an actual score. It's a FIDO score for the pet. So we're for us in our company in GC Realty, when a applicant applies, they pay the application fee, they apply, and then they have an additional application fee, which for us I believe is $20 per pet. They go in and then they have to complete a full application for their pet. They're going to upload shots, they're going to upload records, they're going to upload pictures, they're going to go through a bunch of disclaimers saying that I swear this is my dog's been potty trained. I swear that if this dog passes away, I will get permission from the landlord. So there's a whole bunch of like legalities that you're actually covering, but on you're actually going ahead and screening the tenant. Now that FIDO score, I joke about it, instead of a FICO score, in case you didn't catch it the first time, that FIDO score is a 1 to 5. So if they score a 4 or 5, that dog's pretty risky, or that pet's pretty risky. Maybe it's a puppy that hasn't got a shots, it hasn't been trained, and it's a pit bull. No matter what, they do stereotype the breeds when they do score the stuff. So that might be a 5, and you might not accept it. But then you might have a very innocent dog, maybe doesn't shed, eight weighs 8 pounds, and it's maybe only it's got all the shots and it's been trained and it's got to 1. So you have the ability to go in and do that with pets these days. Now, here's the thing. I won't get into too much of this right now, but you have service animal pets out there as well too. So if you're using some sort of pet screening system, there's a lot of fraud around the whole service pets and the service pet approach these days. I've had tenants say, "Hey, I want to get a dog," and then I say no, and then 2 weeks later they show up saying, "Hey, this is a service pet. You have to allow it." It's a game out there right now, and it takes you using technology and making sure that, but at the same time, making sure you don't do something illegal. So when they're screening their pet, they're entering this stuff, and even if they're a service pet, we still make them put it on file. That way, we have all the things covered as far as risk goes. But they have to upload those licenses or the ESA permits they have, and they have to put in there. They have to put the doctors in there. They have to, and those doctors then get phone calls to verify that this pet, this license or this certification came from your practice. So. Definitely when it comes to ESA, make sure you're using some sort of screening tool for the pets to make sure that people are just not going online and printing something, which it happens out there. And maybe it's not as simple as printing, but there are and it's cracked down a little, but there are doctors all around the country that for a couple $100 they'll have you on there, they'll say you're treated, and they'll say that they'll give you a license that will allow you to get the pet. So now some of the laws that they're they're kind of cutting back on, they're saying, if you are a recipient of a ESA permit, then you have to use a doctor that's in your state. So if someone's applying for your place in Cicero or applying for your place in Lincoln Park, and you get a doctor note from somebody in Florida, that they're working on that becoming not legal. So that's just one of the ways that they're cracking down that. But screening the pets, that's huge. You charge additional fee. There's different companies out there like petscreening.com, and there's a couple other ones that are out there. I know we have one that's built into our underwriting service as well too. Petscreening.com is one of the better known names in the industry. So, but you can screen the pets. Now I know owners that based on that 1 through 5 score that the pet might get, they might accept everything on there, but they'll just charge a higher pet rent, which I'll kind of roll into there because that kind of is a good segue. Offset some of that risk, maybe offset some of the wear and tear. You can charge pet rent. You could charge a non-refundable upfront fee. You could have an additional security deposit. Now, additional security deposit doesn't go that far to offset total risk because you have to give that back. But if you have a dog and you're getting $50 a month pet rent and they're there for 2 years and they really don't do any damage, then you just collected an extra $1,200. So that could be nice as far as your cash flow goes. I've seen people do these monthly pet rent from anywhere up to $200. I recently had an owner that wanted $200, and now the rental rate was like $4,400, and he wanted $200, so $200 would have been a lot if it was like $1,500 rent. But the rent kind of lined up a little more with that larger fee. But at the same time, that tenant was, they're not going to leave Fido out. Like they'll do what it takes to pay for that dog to be wherever they're at, to be in the school district they need to be, or near the work they want to be by. So people will pay for that in that sense. So, but keep that in mind. So you get pet rent. Maybe you charge a non-refundable moving fee up front. $350 non-refundable pet fee. $50. You got to make sure, depending on what county you're in, there's some things you have to make sure you're covered, whether you're a cook or you're a DuPage. There might be a little different approach to this, but you can get pet rent. So keep that in mind. Now, a lot of people are worried about damages, right? And the damages can, it depends how damageable your rental unit is, right? So we've been using plank flooring, vinyl plank flooring for many years now. I got it here in the background. It's super durable. It's water friendly. That wood laminate that we all thought was the next best thing to slice bread that we were using 15 years ago is all waterlogged, and the corners are curling. It's funny seeing that kind of generation go by. Now we're doing the vinyl plank, but vinyl plank is super pet friendly. Like, I have it in my basement as well too, but the vinyl plank floor does not scratch. It's water resistant, so if the dog had an accident. So you having call it pet friendly home or pet proof home can be really big in being able to actually take advantage of this. Not only one, let's try accepting pets to make sure you're not eliminating 66% of the people that are looking, or B, it's an opportunity for me to actually be welcoming to pets and make some more money. So vinyl plank floor, maybe you have old carpet, right? So maybe you have carpet that, right now you're questioning, you maybe get pricing on it? Should I replace it? Maybe I can make it one more turnover. But now, if you have that carpet that's already old and beat up, you already know you're going to change it out. Then you got one more life left. You're going to change it out next round anyway. So if you're able to take a pet on that last leg of that carpet, maybe you charge $100 pet rent. They're there for a year. Maybe they're there 2 years. Maybe you get $2,400. That's your carpet. That's your money that goes towards your new carpet you replace. And honestly, you don't care if they trash it out at that point. If the dog, lots of wear and tear, or maybe there's some stains and stuff like that. There's probably already a lot of wear and tear and already stains if it was on the last leg. So with that being said, now you just raised some money to actually install your next set of flooring. Or maybe you're going to rip out that carpet and now you're going to put vinyl plank, so it's more tenant and pet friendly. So keep that in mind when it comes to flooring. Now, the opposite of that is you have some crazy cherry Brazilian hardwood they barely make, and you can only get it from this small square mile section in the middle of the Amazon down in Brazil. Don't accept pets. So there are some exceptions to what I'm saying here today. And if you're in a high rise in the city, you got some crazy custom wood that it was $23 square foot to install. I probably wouldn't go out there and set yourself up for that failure. So keep that in mind. There's extremes both sides, but when it comes to being pet friendly, you have a fence in your yard, right? You're automatically going to attract people that have pets. You have a pet-friendly building. There's the buildings all in the South Loop there that are literally butted up to the dog park. So people that are going to be looking in those buildings right there are looking there because it's steps to the dog park. So when you're not accepting pets there, like, that's going to be a struggle. And the people that are going to want to live there are not going to be people with no pets, because the people that don't want pets, or maybe they have allergies, aren't going to want to be next to a dog park in a building full of pets. So keep that in mind as far as where you're located. You got a fenced yard and not fenced yard. Not to, if you have a single family versus a condo, single family more than likely is going to attract a family. If families more than likely are going to add pets. I'm being very general here in this, but that ends up being a lot of times. It's really hard to rent a house, and I'll give you some examples here shortly. In a suburb like Naperville, or a suburb like St. Charles or Roselle, where I got a beautiful yard, a fenced yard. It's in the middle of a neighborhood. Rents are $3,000-$4,000. More likely you're going to attract a family. That family has, they have that family pet, that family dog, that family cat. That ends up being like where you'll hear in some of my examples of it just taking a while to get things done in those scenarios. So, went over a bunch of things here. A couple of the examples that we had recently, and it's kind of crazy. So we had a condo in where would we have the condo? There was in up on Sheridan in why am I drawing a blank in the name? Not Rogers Park, but Edgewater. We had a condo in Edgewater. Went on the market, and we said no pets, no pets, nothing, no small pets, no large pets, no cats, no dogs, and that property sat. We started at the price for this 2 bedroom bath at the last couple 2 bedroom 2 baths that rented. And they did allow pets. Beautiful unit. Faced the lake. I mean, there's no other place. I still kills me how cheap you could get a place up there in Edgewater and Roger Park and being right on the lake. It's crazy. So, but this place, beautiful place. We started kind of within market of the building, but then all of a sudden, we weren't getting activity. Like we barely got anything. And we're marketed everywhere. We're marketed on Zillow. We're marketed on MLS. We're marketed on everywhere you could find it. And ultimately, we literally were on the market for about 90 days. Now we did a bunch of price drops, and at one point we were literally $200 lower than any of the lowest 2 bedroom 2 baths in the area that accepted pets. Now eventually we end up getting somebody, and they had allergies, and they liked the concept that there was no pets in there, but it took so long. It literally took I think between the time we listed it and the time they moved in ended up being, it's right around 110 days or something like that. So keep that in mind dollar-wise. This was a $3,000 rental. So he lost probably, I would say probably about $200 or $300 of rent a month compared to his neighboring comparables. So that's $3,600 right there for the year. He was on the market for another, probably 60 days probably than he should have. So that's another 3,000 plus 3,000, 6,000. So you're at $9,600. So $10,000 it costs to not have pets there. Now, if we're worried about risk, worried about damage, that $10,000 could have gave him a brand new kitchen, or could have redid all his flooring and gave him a brand new bathroom in that sense. If we're going to really look at how we would apply the money we would made up for if we would allowed pets, got someone in there right away, and got the higher rent. Now, the fear is then this person then leaves pretty quickly, and now you're in that situation again. If it takes him every 120 days every time to turn over a unit, that's a horrible business model for a landlord. So I don't got to tell you guys that, but so keep that in mind. That was a true case study that happened this year. And don't get me wrong, I begged, borrowed, and pleaded with the guy to accept pets. I was actually thinking about putting up security deposit myself for the tenants that we could put in there just to make sure that we could get this place rented faster. Crazy. I was doing everything. So, but that just goes to show his fears were very deeply rooted, and it was all because he knew somebody that had pet damage. It was actually the person he knew was in that building as well too. But it was a crazy situation of his friend. They had to evict the tenant. They had to, the tenant stopped paying. They had to evict the tenant, and then they moved out, and there's all this pet damage, and that ends up being that basically totally gave him that forever fear of accepting pets. He might not ever, but the sad part is there's a good chance that maybe we'll rent it out one more time. He's not gonna make much money on this place, and he'll eventually just sell and just get out of real estate altogether, which that's the ultimate shame, because you're talking to somebody here that preaches real estate as being kind of the path of financial freedom, or maybe if you're not even going to be that dramatic, it's the path to paying for your kids' college. It's the path to having money tucked away if you're a bad saver. So it's sad when I see people get out of business because maybe their fears overwhelm them so much to the point where some of the logic that is real doesn't allow them to kind of guide their way. So the other, going back to kind of pet friendly or not pet friendly, we talked about flooring. We talked about, but we didn't talk about cats. So cats, we're back to that screening part. When you're screening that cat, make sure it's it's trained, it's litter box trained, all that stuff. That's so important. So I will tell you probably the worst thing I think that could happen with pets is having a cat that pees all over the carpet and it seeps through to the floor, to the plywood underneath the floor. That is probably ends up being one of your worst case scenarios when it comes to cats. So the cats, we've had that happen for us. We inherited this property. I know this wasn't a tenant we placed, but again, I imagine we could have traced this back to the quality of the applicant that we inherited. And I think we inherited that one because the tenant was being difficult and the owner got sick of dealing with it. But that cat peed everywhere. That lady was a hoarder. So again, you can see there's a bunch of different problems here with the scenario that wasn't really around the pet, and it was around everything kind of with that applicant. So that pet peed. We ripped out all the carpet. We put in new carpet, and the smell didn't go away. This is early on. This is probably about 10, 12 years ago. So definitely a lesson learned here for us. Ripped out the carpet, and then we had to actually go back, take out the new carpet, and we treated the plywood. And sometimes it even gets so bad where you have to take out a piece of plywood too. For that particular situation, there's one section of plywood we actually ripped out and put a new subfloor in before we put the new carpet back down. So all in all, that was a problem where we're trying to rent it, but the smell kept going away, kept coming back, and every time it would go away, we thought we were good, and then it would come back. So people were showing that they complained about it. So it was definitely something that we had to overcome. That was probably one of the worst case scenarios you could have. But now on the flip side, you have cats, and you have them, especially in the city, in apartments, or definitely the garden apartments. You now, as funny as it sounds, you now have a partial pest control solution. I'll tell you this: I don't have the specific numbers, but we never. I can tell you just by experience, we never have pest control issues in our 2, 3, 4 flat, 6 flat buildings when we have cats in the building. And especially when we have cats in the garden or basement units. When you put cats in there, that's great. And they do what they got to do. I don't know what they do, or maybe the mice stay away because they don't want to be by a cat, or they know the little mice put their little signs up there saying, hey, this is a cat house, stay away. But they do. And it's been something that's been super beneficial for properties I've owned in the city, and then also properties we manage. So we're always encouraging that. Now, on the flip side of that, something that to know, dog poop will attract rats. So if you have a pet, make sure you have specific pet rules of where they're able to poop, and make sure that doesn't bring the rats to your yard. So it's more of a Chicago problem than it is a suburb problem. But keep that in mind. So make sure that if your people are picking up the poop, and if they're not, you're managing them correctly to it. So I know we have to send out a couple 10-day notices a year to tenants that are not picking up their poop, and it's funny. They're like, it's not mine. It's like, well, you're the only one with the dog in that yard. So I don't think other people are coming in the yard. So, but we deal with that on a one-off basis. And then we ultimately usually threaten them with, hey, if we do have pest control issues, we're going to charge you back for that. So, but yeah, so dog poop, that's definitely something we want to keep up on. And I know for you city owners, we talked about how a fence might be super attractive in the suburbs and attract people with pets, but in the city, you might have a 3 flat or a 2 flat, or you might live in one unit, and you might be renting the other unit, and in the backyard, you just don't want the dog back there. It's more acceptable to say, hey, you can have a dog, but you just can't have them in the backyard. And they have to go walk them up and down the street or go to the near dog park or whatnot. So keep that in mind. You can put rules in place that will help you control the controllables. I had one other good thought there. Cats, dogs. Yeah, I drew a blank on where I was going with that. But so having the rules and making sure that you're having them follow it is super important when it comes to at least having pets. That reduces so much of the risk as well too. Just making sure that you're staying on top of you have the rules for your pets within your lease, or hanging in your common area hallway or whatnot. So the other scenario that we had recently, and it was in the suburbs, where we had 3 properties, 3 single family homes. The subject home that did not allow pets were rented for $4,300. We had another similar house, about $4,400, and then we had another one right down the street in Lisle, and that was like $3,900. Now, it was the perfect study because all 3 houses, the same type of person would have rented all 3 of them. Would have been the same type of traffic through there as far as potential applicants. Now, what we had happen was for the subject property, the one that we were not allowing pets in, we literally only got 5 or 6 showings when it was all said and done. And I think 2 of those 5 or 6 were people that were like, hey, I have a pet. Can you make this work? But the other 2 showings, so the $4,400 one and the one we had in Lisle, we literally had, it was like 17, 18 showings like the first week on both of them. So think about this. We were on the market with no pets, with just minimum showings for I think 3 or 4 weeks, but the other one within 7 days, we had 17 showings for both of them. So it ends up being in that scenario. And if you're going to chalk it down to I think the first week we only had one showing for the one that we weren't allowing pets. So I mean that ended up being a I call it a 7-to-1 showing ratio for the one for pets and without pets. No, so that was just such a big eye opener to me of how big of a gap it's became with allowing pets or not allowing pets. Now, you have an option. So if you're on the fence, you're like, I'm not really comfortable with pets, or and I hear what you're saying, but I still know this guy that knows this guy that had this bad situation. There's something you could do that's kind of in the middle that can help you get closer to maybe overcoming that concern, or at least not limiting all your options. So this is what we always tell people: hey, listen, you don't have to accept all pets, right? Maybe your dog. Most people are dog people or cat people. They're like, all right, so you're a cat person, we could accept just cats. That opens it up. Maybe you're not going to get the full 66% you're missing, but now everybody, Zillow, all those places, when they're searching, it usually says pets Y or pets N, or so yes or no. So you might they'll still at least see it. And if you have if you're accepting at least one of them, or maybe maybe you're a dog person, you could actually choose small dogs only, and small dog size, I think it's subjective out there. We usually say 25 or 30 pounds, but a tenant's going to come in there and say 45 or 60 pounds, where they're going to send a picture of their small German Shepherd, which doesn't exist. So you gotta kind of make sure that you screen that. But with if you're at least accepting pets, that means that you're getting everybody looking at your place, and you're not leaving any options. You're not closing the door on any options that you have out there. So if you are on the fence, you can at least select yes. Now the cool thing is, application comes in, you don't like it, or you're not comfortable with that particular pet, bam, you could deny it. You can't get in trouble for fair housing for discriminating against legit pets. Now, ESA, all that, we're not going to go into again. That's a whole nother path. But you can't get in trouble for saying, I'm not crazy about this application because I'm not crazy about having 2 pit bulls. You can put a pet limit as well too, of course. So you might market your place that we accept pets, but then in the fine print it's cats only or dogs only under 10 pounds. Or I've seen somebody, and I wouldn't go this far, but I saw somebody that is like only allows hyperallergenic pets, so that limits you to like the whole doodle side of the pet sphere. So, but yeah, I probably wouldn't go that extreme. But if you're going to accept small dogs, then you can at least get everything coming in, and then if you get that 800 credit score with huge income and the perfect rental history, or they own their house and they got this golden doodle that doesn't shed, that's 4 years old, it's been trained. You might just feel good at that point, and you're going to get an extra $100 a month, or an extra $50, an extra $25, whatever it might be in pet rent. Now all of a sudden your return's gone up as far as your income. So, but yeah, so there's definitely ways you can work around that. I gave you a couple scenarios there that might have felt extreme, but those are pretty real, and those are happening. So I get buddies all the time that are people from the podcast that call me up and say, hey, I'm struggling to get this place rented. Can you take a look at it? And right away, I look for no pets. And they're like, okay, so you're no pets. And then I said, you're $200 overpriced and you're accepting no pets. And he's like, I said, let me guess, you're only getting sad story, garbage applicants. He's like, yeah, they keep calling me. They got this long. I'm like, yes, that's who you're attracting. So keep in mind, all the best applicants are attracted to the best priced, best looking units that allow pets. That's where you're always going to win. So if you have the best priced, or in the market, it looks good on paper, and you're allowing pets, you're always going to get your place rented far faster than the opposite of any of those. So, or if you're trying to push rent or whatever. I've gone into a whole other things on rent and trying to push rent versus getting it rented faster, and really the math doesn't always math out when you're trying to push rent, when you just try to do it at market rent and someone moves in 2 or 3 weeks faster. So I'm open to talk about pets anytime. I'm open to talk about tenant screening. I'll put the link in here. We have a tenant screening mastery guidebook that we put out every year, and the most recent one came out last month, so I'll share that here as well too. Love to hear you. If you have any, you can leave comments here if you're not watching the live stream. Love to hear any thoughts, or maybe you think I'm Maybe you think I'm crazy, or maybe I have a better way. I'm always open to learn. So this is what we know. This is what we see. Like I said, rented over 5,000 units. Right now we have 1,400 tenants that we're doing, and I believe right now we're about 70% people with pets. So that's crazy, right? 70% short of a couple apartment buildings that we kind of track separately. So I'm not sure the pet ratio with those. Reach out anytime. We have, like I said, the podcast is a huge resource for anyone in Chicago real estate investing. For us, a good referral for us is anyone look for tenant placement. So I always tell people that you might like manage your property. That's great. But let us help you with the true legwork when it comes to tenant placement. Make sure the place looks good for renting, getting the pictures done, doing all the pre-screening, doing all the showings, going through all the applications, making sure that you are getting a quality applicant approved. Because, at the end of the day, the time you put into approving the right applicant will save you on the managing on the back end, especially for you self-managers. I'll be honest, we look at it very similar with our own company. If we can nail screening, that means the rapport with us and our clients that we manage for is always going to be that much easier. So let me know if you have any questions around tenant screening. We do full service property management. And if you ever have anyone, we pay referral fees. We have a link on our website if you want to refer somebody. We definitely pay referral fees out there for rental license and also, rental license for renting, tenant placement, and full service property management. So Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. Love for you to check it out. If you're not already, if you're following it already, we love you for it. Hopefully, if you see this before May 22nd, we're having a 5-year anniversary party and love to have you out there. So I will talk to you soon, and we will see you next week on Chicago Landlord Secrets.